Good morning, Sandy.
Well, good morning, Amy.
How are you on this bright, sunny Friday?
You know what? I've got yoga this morning, so I'm looking forward to that. And yeah, little trip to visit my parents. So next taping, I will probably be in Arizona.
Oh, nice. That'll be fun. Good
Yeah.
for you. Good for you. Well, I'm doing a road trip to hunt for a place to live in Kansas City because our house sold. So,
Yay!
I know, yay. It's so exciting. Okay, so speaking of going to Kansas City, um, I am in the process of doing a pivot. And so I've done a little research on how to do this. So I'm going to be picking your brain a little bit because I've gotten some information, I have some ideas, I've started, but you've done some pivots and
And
with
I
your
teach on pivots, so
you
it's
teach on pivots.
I like this. We got a live study here.
I know we are live with this is why you're one of my favorite people is because you are a good resource for all sorts of things when it comes to professional work and stuff like that. All sorts of things. So anyway, plus
And
you're
I
a
go
good
to you for the organizing because I can help with the pivot, but yeah,
I know. I was just talking with someone and
the process to get there.
we were talking about a process and I was like, well, why don't we simplify it and do this? And she's like, well, I think my way's simpler. So it was kind of a funny, I was like, oh, even the perspective of what's simple. Anyway, it was a funny little conversation. Um, okay. So pivoting. I'll give you a little background. I am planning to pivot my business because not only are we moving,
Nice.
my business right now is working organizing and productivity consulting. I work with small businesses. I work with some larger companies on specific employee productivity issues. And then I do a lot of residential also because that's how I started. And I
Mhm.
started working, helping people organize
Great.
kitchens for processes. Like I think of what their cooking process is and their paper process and how it comes in and what creates the clutter. And that's what I love to do. I love processes, simplifying processes, not making big elaborate processes. So anyway, that's what I've been doing. Now I'm going to pivot and specialize a little bit more with the stuff that has really been resonating with me, which is small businesses and creating um, processes and time management for entrepreneurs who are trying to do everything in their business. So
Wow,
they're
that's a
trying
big
to
need for that.
do, they're trying to do the marketing, they're trying to do their financials, they're trying to do their sales, they're trying to do their actual projects, the actual work. So they're doing everything. And so that's what I'm going to specialize in. And I'll be in a new city doing that. So that's my pivot.
Which is a second pivot too, which is a huge pivot. So one thing kind of big picture too, like on pivots that I think is good to go through because everyone, sometimes people who are listening will say, well, I don't have a big pivot going on in my life. Well, the reality is typically there's a whole series of small pivots. There are things that you want to do. They're all out there. We don't all have the big, I'm going to change my career, but it's what you're doing before you get there that helps you structured in making that decision. Um, and you've got two big ones, Amy. Usually there are the four main types of pivots are where you live, moving, right? Where you
Mhm.
live, your job, your relationships. And then, of course, there's the one that's health related that you can't always contain. And that's the second part of this. Some pivots are by choice, and you've got a great opportunity because yours are all by choice, right? You're choosing
Yeah,
to make these pivots. My
thankfully.
three, so my three big pivots in life that I always say I'm the master in pivots is big move, divorce, relationship, and then also I made a huge career change. And I tell you, for my three, um, one I absolutely chose. One I had I didn't see it coming. And the third one was somewhere in between because the reality is, if it wasn't for Garrett's desire to move, I never would have done that on my own. In my mind, I made the pivot for him. So it back to pivoting, you're in a great mindset because you're really in the driver's seat. And the good thing is with your business, it does impact other people, but then also with Tom in the move. The biggest thing, and then we can start a conversation because I don't want to be doing all the talking because this is just something I talk about. So I get
This is good. I love it. Keep talking.
The biggest thing with any type of pivots, whether it is by choice or not by choice, is for, at the end of the day, you're taking control of the decisions. Even if it isn't by choice, we talked last time about creating your own story narrative. We talked about, every action, every word is coming from me, whether that pivot, that change was my desire or not. The biggest mistake I see that happens is people start with the what, which is the change. So for instance, for you, it'd be, let's just go with the job change, right? With the refocus is, here's what I want to do. So I'm going to get my website together. Here's all the tactical things I'm going to do to get there. And you're in a great place because you've already chosen what you want to do. A lot of people they know they want to do something different, but they haven't figured out what they want to do. And quite frankly, it probably will evolve a little bit as you look at it, maybe in how you package your plans. But the key is the success factor in a pivot is going back to your core why, and going back to the core why of why you want to change it. And it's actually easy because it's innate, but it's difficult because it's not purely a checklist, right? It's not something, it's actually easy because it's you. It's innately, it's your passions, it's your value proposition. And if you stay key to your core, you will then be able to execute on all the steps and the action items. The mistake that's made are people just jump right into, I'm going to do, okay, I got to come up with something. And if it's business, how do I monetize that? They're focused on the money, the market, but they're not focused on their innate why, right? And it's going back to the why and always defaulting to the why as you're developing the plan. That's the key, is to really know, just like you have your social security number, all your collateral, personal collateral. Part of your personal collateral is knowing your value proposition, knowing what your passions are, and holding those true all the way through. And then figure out the monetization later. It doesn't mean that then say, how am I going to monetize this in business? How is there a client for that? But start with that and see if and then form the plan around that.
I love that advice. And as I'm sitting here thinking, you're right. It's very innate to me, like why I'm doing this. But putting words around it so that I'm communicating that to everybody,
right,
is going to be probably a moment of vulnerability, of, revealing myself, because and being authentic to who I am, but also some softness around it. That's where I'm a little, because I don't want people that I've worked with for years to think that I didn't value doing that. Does that make sense? Because
Amy,
I'm giving up these, because I have relationships with all of these people that I've worked with. And I don't want them to feel devalued because I'm no longer doing that type of work anymore.
There's a huge benefit. There's a huge collateral asset we have that's called stepping stones too, that you can choose. Because at the end of the day, I'm kind of a wussy. And when it came to the one that was my choice, which I completely changed careers, right? I left my career that I had. And the reality was, me going to the primary care center was 100% a stepping stone, because it was an easy transition to what I really wanted to do is what I'm doing now, more one-on-one consulting, very small consulting people. Right.
Right.
But there was a stepping stone to get there. And with any pivot, you can go all out, or you can do a stepping stone. Great thing with stepping stones. So if you chose to keep some of your clients, or not just rip off the Band-Aid and try something new. The great thing with that is it's experimental too, because you can see what's working, what's not working, what you like. You have a safety net with some of that income, and you do a good job for them. So it's not it's not bad for them. It can be a win-win if that's an approach you want to take.
Yeah, it's interesting. Location changes that though,
Right.
because I will not be in town to actually help people, and most of my residential clients are local. So there is kind of
Helps a lot.
a line in the sand of, okay, I'm no longer in town. So,
And I will tell you, Amy, your elevator speech, when people that know you, when you say what you're doing, they will look at you like you're crazy because they're so used to what you're doing. And I just people, and what's good is they remember what you're doing, because typically that's a sign of, a good job on your brand and you've done a good job. But it's tough.
yeah,
Pivot is tough because people innately don't like change.
right.
They really don't. And when they see you making a change, you're going to find that with your move, any kind of pivot that you make, there are going to be a healthy amount of people that are scared for you, are skeptical, it is a reality of the pivot. And that's why some people just decide not to do it, because
Right.
they don't want the negative feedback. They don't like the uncertainty, and they second guess their decisions.
Yeah. I have a girlfriend who, when I let this group know that we had sold our house and moving, or maybe it was when we were listing, I don't know. And everybody's pretty supportive. And then one of them said, you know what? I don't like change. This upsets me. I was
Just
like,
being honest.
and I was like, you know what? Thank you for being honest. And actually, some other people on the thread were like, you know what? Yes, I agree. We support you. We're excited for you. But yeah, this is hard. Like, change is hard. I was like, yeah. And yes, it is. It's a little bittersweet, but it's all good.
It's all good. And I'll tell you, Amy, you're a step ahead of the whole game. I'm sitting here talking because you have great self-awareness and you've thought through everything you're saying on what you want to do is exactly the steps to a very successful pivot, because you're looking for those things that are your passion, that you bring value to. And here's the thing, when you said wrapping words around it, if it truly is something you love and you're passionate about, you don't even have to wrap words around it. Just like when you told me what you're going to do, it because it's what you love to do. You don't have to come up with something, because it's a natural for you and you're naturally excited about it too.
I am. I actually am. So that's good. Okay. So one of the advice, and you touched on this, controlling the narrative and having a communication strategy. I have talked to a few people and they're like, you have to have a communication strategy because you have to control the narrative of this, of why you're going. Um, what is it that you want people to understand about this, and just everything. And I think that, and wrapping, like putting the words around all of it, like you just said, is so key, and the timing of it. Because here's one of the things that I've noticed. Um, I was working with the person who does marketing for my company, and I was talking about the strategy. And so we were talking about how we're going to switch branding and, do okay, so she's doing a soft introduction of the new brand and she's starting to incorporate it. But we haven't explained it yet. And which is fine, because I said, oh yeah, that's a great idea. We kind of agreed on this. But I am telling you, all my friends are like, what are you doing? Like, what's going on? Are you closing your business? Because it's something new and different. So that was a little bit of oh, maybe we should have explained it and then started doing the soft. I don't know. I don't know the right.
It's tough. It gets back to, I'll tell you, back with all three of my big pivots that all ultimately ended up very successful, there were pitfalls in each. And even with the do-overs, you can't control how other people accept your narrative. You know, for instance, I was told by people I think the world of, you have to stay working in healthcare, finance. And they were scared for me. They thought I had lost my marbles. There were, dating a guy from Denver, that wasn't the narrative people wanted. So there's also an acceptance that not everybody's going to accept your narrative. And that doesn't mean that they're ill-spirited. Some just want something to talk about. It's going to be there because it's the fresh news on the table. When there's a pivot, when there's a change, it gets people's attention. It just does.
Yeah.
But you learn lessons too, hey, you react to it, and now you're probably going to do a little bit more of a harder opening rather than a softer. And maybe a few more people will understand it. But I'll tell you, my experience has been, maybe, you can correct the narrative or make it a little bit easier. It's just a hard thing for people. Change is a hard thing for people to wrap their brain around, unless it's very much, even if you say I'm moving here to here. Well, why are you moving there? What about this? They're thinking through all the things facing you. But the great thing is, with a pivot is change. And the best opportunity with a change is we get a clean slate on a lot of things to say, how do I want to change this? Which gets back to the passion and your value. Everybody has the opportunity then to say, here's what I want to get out of this change. The best example I can think of, because it's with relationships, is my divorce attorney told me a statistic at the time that 85% of people remarry a person that's just like their ex-spouse. And because it's easier, it, you can think about the friends you seek out when you move, have in the back of your mind, I'm going to seek out the people I'm used to, but should I, maybe I need to open my eyes because it's easy. It's comfortable. Maybe the comfortable is the right word, not easy. And lo and behold, I did not marry the same person, and neither did my ex-spouse, but I got to tell you, my inclination was for the same personality because that's what I was used to for 20 years. It was comfortable to me.
So interesting. That is so interesting. I have a couple of thoughts on that because, number one, I read a book on trauma and over the summer, one of the things they were talking about is people who are in abusive types of relationships. There's the cycle of they'll go back to that with their next relationship because that's what they're comfortable with. That's to them, it's predictable. It's understandable. They know what's going to happen next. Instead of, it's harder to go to the unknown. It's easier to go to what's it's interesting. Very interesting. The second thought on that is I'm looking for apartments right now, and I've started that search this week. And yesterday I was telling a friend, because one of the things is we're in our 50s. Okay. And the area we're looking at, is urban, and it could be a community for young professionals. I'll just say that, looking at it. And so when I was asking the manager, said, what are the demographics of the business or the community? And she started laughing. She's like, I can't answer that question. And I'm like, I'm sure there's some laws around asking that question. And I was like, all right, so here's why I'm asking. We're in our 50s. I'm like, are all of our neighbors going to be in our 20s, or are there going to be anybody like us?
Oh my gosh, that's so funny how she could have interpreted that. But what a good question.
I know, and she's like, I still can't answer that question. So I was like, okay. So I'm like, we'll be fine. But to me, I was telling my friend, I'm like, okay, I need to flip and quit thinking I need to surround myself with people similar to me, because maybe the 20-year-olds will be great fun.
Right.
Who
Because,
knows?
but here's the reality that there is one pivot that nobody has control of, and that is aging. We all
Right.
age and
Yeah.
we all eventually die. And we don't know when it's going to happen, but we age. And that is back to pivoting. We are all pivoting, whether we want to say we are or not. And there's certain eras, and our era, that the years in the 50s is a pretty subtle, uh, not subtle, a pretty profound change between empty nesting, menopause, you know,
Yeah.
ending careers, the latter part of careers. There's a lot going on,
Right.
whether we
Exactly.
want it to be that way or not. But back to your point, be open-minded. Do we go in a box of saying, okay, because I'm in my 50s, these are the people I need to hang out with, these are the people I need to live by. This is because it's comfortable. It's what we talk about with people of the same mindset. And it doesn't mean, I like how you talked about it. I like how she didn't tell you, and you're like, I need to find out and I want to go for something different. The reality is being not looking for the same, but being open-minded to what you get. Because my marriage to Garrett wasn't then because I had the perfecting my pivot wasn't changing my mindset because my attorney said this, that I said, I am looking for something different. I stopped looking for something, a certain pattern. I was open-minded to that. And quite frankly, that's not always fair to the other person because you are looking for something that they are not, right?
Right.
The goal in any relationship is not to think alike, but to think together. So whether
Right.
you're, and it makes for the best partnerships, right? Any neighbor relationship. But I love that.
I know. It
What's
was
the
kind of,
demographics? I can't
and
answer that.
I know. Exactly. And I was like, okay, I'm shifting my thinking. And I'm like, all right, maybe we will be hanging out with 20-year-olds at the pool. And it's going to be what it is. Who
Right.
knows? I don't care. It'll be fun. I'll learn from them. It'll bring an energy to our everything. That'll be different. She did say, just so you know, no matter who lives here, everybody's really respectful. And I was
Good.
like, all right, good. I'm like, then I'm good with that. So anyway, it was good. So here's my question. You've done a couple of location pivots. We have like just a couple more minutes. Is there something that you did different in Durango that you learned from Boise when you were relocating? And I know you've talked about what things were important and not important, but I'm talking about more in your daily, like what you learned in Boise that you wanted to implement in Durango.
I would tell you the number one thing was we needed to stay at a place for a longer period of time to check it out because it takes way more time than you think. You think, oh, I'll stay somewhere for a month. I'll stay. It takes more than that to figure out how comfortable you feel, to get to know people, to give yourself time not to jump into things. So I would tell you my biggest lesson was both with picking a place, because nothing, we talked about this, nothing is forever,
Yeah.
but you kind of need a year. You need
Yeah.
at least 6 months. So if you're going to pick an apartment, I wouldn't go for, oh, we can go month to month or something. You need more time than that. And then you also need to be curious and go out and immerse yourself. That doesn't mean you have to commit yourself, but immerse yourself to different opportunities, because I had a lot of fun in Boise, but I really didn't. I didn't make myself a part of the community. I just participated more as a visitor. And when I came here, I was much more open-minded. And, back to my She Is Durango, I tried different things. I didn't necessarily commit to anything, but I immersed myself in the community as one of the community.
That is great advice because I could see it easy to view yourself as a visitor if you know it's temporary.
Mhm.
And I know when my mom came to Omaha, that's one of the things that happened with her is she didn't really dive in because she was traveling a lot. She didn't want to commit to anything. So,
It changes your feel.
well, it didn't feel like home to her. Like when she decided to leave, she was like, this just doesn't feel like home, aside from not liking the weather. And I was like, okay, I get it. And then she committed when she moved to Las Vegas to be part of a community. And she became part of a community and got involved. And it's been a completely different experience with her. And that's why she's been there so long. So good advice. I love that.
I think as humans, one of our core needs is to be a part of a community. For everybody, that community is different, what that means,
Mhm.
but we're not born to be alone, right?
Yeah, completely. All right. Well,
Amy,
thank you.
this is exciting. We get to go on your journey with you. This is
I
fun.
know. I'm gonna tell you what, being in Omaha for 24 years now, these are some big pivots happening and it is exciting. It's a great opportunity. So it'll be fun. Very
Mhm.
fun.
Awesome. All
All right.
right. Until
Okay.
next week.
All right.
Bye-bye.